the latest dose of Bipolar Recorder. This podcast may cause dizziness and blurred vision. Enjoy.
Welcome back to Bipolar Recorder, an independent American mental health advocacy podcast. This show started in October 2021, and in just a few weeks, it'll be October 2025. I can't believe how far this project has come in the last 4 years. I'm your host, Hunter Keegan. For those of you who are new to the show or who have somehow forgotten, I'm a 32-year-old man living with a serious mental health condition called bipolar disorder type 1 with psychotic features. I currently live in Roanoke, Virginia, but am originally from the greater Washington, D.C. area. Several years ago, I decided to start sharing my personal journey with bipolar disorder by publishing books and articles pertaining to my lived experience, and that's what eventually led to this podcast. My first book was titled My Brain is Trying to Kill Me, and it was published in June 2020. My latest book is called Happy Valleys, A Bipolar Journey, and that was published earlier this year in February 2025. Both are memoirs about my young adult experiences with bipolar disorder and substance abuse, and they're available on Amazon.com if you'd like to check them out. I'm especially proud of Happy Valleys, A Bipolar Journey, and would be honored if you grabbed a copy. Links to those works, as well as other cool merch, can be found at bipolarrecorder.com, or you can just search for them on Google or Amazon. Beyond my books and the podcast, Bipolar Recorder has evolved to consist of a vibrant online mental health peer support community hosted on the Twitter/X Spaces platform. You can find those by following at Bipolar Recorder. Real-world keynote speaking events at Penn State University and even a documentary film have also been created as part of this mental health outreach project. For today's installment of the podcast, I have an interview that I recently recorded with a friend of mine, Jennifer Suzanne. Jennifer is a 37-year-old aspiring author currently residing near Washington, D.C. We met earlier this year after she reached out to me on social media with some questions about my written work. Aside from her literary pursuits, Jennifer is also a scientist who works for a biotechnology research company. During the interview, she discusses her journey with bipolar disorder, which began in 2008 when she was in college studying for her bachelor's degree in biology. Here's something worth noting. The conversation you're about to listen to contains a lot of references to psychosis. For people who don't already know, psychosis in a clinical context essentially means that you're experiencing breaks with reality in the form of delusions, which means false thoughts like believing you're a prophet, and or hallucinations, which are false sensory perceptions. So that would be like hearing voices or maybe seeing things that aren't there. Psychosis can be a feature of mania and or depression in some people who live with bipolar disorder. So not everyone with bipolar experiences psychosis, but there is a subtype of bipolar disorder that does feature psychosis. We also discuss life functioning drop-offs. Remember that serious mental illnesses, or SMIs, like bipolar disorder, are diagnosed when someone experiences major disruptions in life functioning. Bipolar disorder is not simply being sad or happy on some days. It's an episodic condition, meaning that it comes and goes, and it can be massively debilitating and prevent you from participating in your normal day-to-day life. A couple of basic hypothetical examples of life functioning drop-offs would be if you were, say, a top student whose grades suddenly plummet due to your mental health condition. Or maybe if you were an elite athlete who suddenly finds themselves unable to get out of bed each morning due to exhaustion. This is why bipolar disorder is referred to as a disorder. This mental health condition goes far beyond the routine spectrum of life experience that most people encounter. Finally, before I roll this audio, I wanted to highlight that Jennifer and I discuss different types of psychiatric medications, particularly antipsychotics and mood stabilizers. At various points in our conversation, we touch on medication, but remember that on this show, we are always solely speaking from our individual perspectives and experiences. We are not making treatment recommendations to other individuals or attempting to give other individuals medical advice. Please do not interpret what we share about ourselves as being recommendations for your own personal medical treatment plan. All right, now that we're all up to speed, let's hear Jennifer tell her story. I am joined this evening by Miss Jennifer Suzanne, a friend of mine, a friend of the show. She is a biotech scientist from the Washington, D.C. area, and we met back maybe late winter of 2025. We can maybe talk a little bit about how you and I started conversing in just a little bit. But Jennifer, welcome to the show. It's good to have you here.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So tell us a little bit about who you are, where you're at in life today, and then from there, maybe we can go back and talk about how things were before you got to where you are now.
Sure. So I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder back when I was 20 years old in college. I was pre-med at the time. And I guess I'll go more into that episode and some other episodes that I've had later. But I basically struggled a lot with bipolar in my 20s and started working in biotech in my late 20s. That's kind of when I started to get my feet back on the ground and kind of get into the workforce. I had worked other jobs like at a bookstore, and I actually got the chance to work at the World Expo in China briefly in my early 20s, but I didn't really feel like I was getting my career started until I was about 28. So I feel like I'm kind of a late bloomer, but these days, I'm living a pretty good life, I would say. I have,
And how old are you now?
I'm 37. I have a partner, a stepson, and a son, and I've been working as a scientist for about 10 years now. And now thinking back, I think it was not age 28, it was 26 that I got my first job in the sciences, where I actually was using my biology degree from college. And, I think that, you know, having gone through bipolar disorder, having several episodes has affected my self-esteem over the years. And that comes out professionally sometimes. Sometimes I feel like I'm a success, and sometimes I feel like I'm an imposter, and I'm
Yeah.
kind of just like making it by day to day. So,
Yeah, imposter syndrome is definitely a thing. I know I've felt like that at many points throughout my career. I am 32, so just a few years younger than yourself. And I remember when I was in college starting to encounter those early symptoms of burgeoning serious mental illness. It was something that I didn't really fully understand at the time. What were your initial experiences with bipolar like? Because you said that it really started coming out when you were in your early 20s when you were studying biology
Mhm.
and going into pre-med and stuff. What was that like for you? Like, when did you start noticing that maybe something was wrong?
Well, first of all, I had taken one intro to psychology course at that point in my life, and I was completely blindsided by it. When they told me that I was likely bipolar, I was in the emergency room, like full-blown manic episode, um, just not in touch with reality. And I was kind of confused when they first said that because I didn't think that bipolar disorder was that serious of an illness. I just thought it was kind of like mood swings. I didn't really
Yeah.
understand what it was or that psychosis could be involved. I'm not sure I even really had a grasp on what psychosis really was. Um, so I was completely just shocked and my world was turned upside down. Um,
So when they told you that, did you believe it? Or did you kind of think, maybe they're wrong, or that doesn't sound like me, or that doesn't add up?
I can like clearly remember the moment that I think it was a nurse that told me what he thought that I had. Um, and I think it was mostly just confusion. I was like, what is bipolar disorder? What does this mean? Um, and I think I was kind of surprised that they were giving me a diagnosis of a disorder. Like, I thought I was going through something strange,
Hmm.
but I think that was the first moment that I started to internalize it as some kind of identity, that
Yeah.
there's something maybe chronically wrong, potentially. So,
And what were the strange things that led you to the emergency room that time?
so, um, definitely delusions. I was having delusions that I was in a play, that the world around me wasn't quite real. Everyone was actors. Um, and I was having a lot of religious delusions as well, like that I was some kind of prophet writing a new book of the Bible, and everything I said was being written down by angels or something along those lines. But
Totally.
I was kind of like, uh, I just remember feeling like I was dreaming but being awake. And um, it was brought about by a couple of triggers. So it was midterm time in the fall in 2008. And I had just gotten a phone call that one of my high school acquaintances had passed away in a car accident. He was a friend of a friend, um, but somebody that honestly I had a big crush on him, and I had gone on like one date with him and it didn't go anywhere, but I was like, maybe one day.
Hmm.
And so I kind of, whether or not it was reciprocated, I had feelings for this person and I was really grieving his death. Um, and at the same time, I was studying for midterms. And
Hmm.
I remember waking myself up in the middle of the night to study. I don't know why I thought that was a good idea, but I got about 4 hours of sleep 4 nights in a row. And then I just started having these delusions. So,
The delusions of feeling like you were in like a waking dream, that you were channeling God or other, whatever other higher power you want to say.
yeah.
That's when that kind of started.
And it was completely disrupting my life. I was not, it was very obvious to the people around me that I was going through something. Um, I'll just describe some of what was going on. at the time I was sharing an apartment with a couple of roommates. This is like a time in my life that I don't think about a lot because it's traumatic.
Mm-hmm.
I had a couple of roommates, and then on this one particular afternoon, my best friend came over, and I was just walking around the apartment naked, just completely like unaware of reality.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I just said some strange things to her, and um, I remember thinking that the people talking on the television were talking to me and that I could kind of communicate with them. And
Yeah.
I actually like pulled over this big screen TV, like knocked it over onto my leg. I got this like giant bruise from it. Um, that oh my God, this sounds so weird. You'll probably take this out, but it was like in the shape of a P. And I remember thinking like Saint Peter was trying to like call me into heaven
Hmm.
and just like looking for all these like symbols
Mm-hmm.
in the things around me. Um, so yeah, obviously I was like damaging property and kind of injuring myself and saying strange things. And so my friend called the ambulance and had me taken in to the hospital. Interestingly enough, her mom apparently also has bipolar disorder, so I think she recognized what was going on. So it was
Yeah.
kind of lucky that she was the one that found me in that state, so she kind of knew what to do.
That's pretty
Um,
intense stuff. So when the ambulance and paramedics arrived, like how did that go down?
so they basically wrapped me in a blanket and put me on a stretcher. I remember also being in this, when you're manic, you're in this kind of like hypersexual state too. So I was kind of like trying to flirt with them and
Oh
stuff. It
man.
was like really weird.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but I also, yeah, it's almost um, like when you're on certain party drugs and you think the person that you're talking to is like the most attractive, charming person you've ever seen. That's how I
Yeah.
felt about these
Oh man.
EMTs.
Yeah. I remember when I was in college, I was at a party once and my friends and I had taken Molly and I had literally like a 2.5 hour long conversation with like just this random chick about her cats. She was like telling me about her cats and I was like so enamored by it. And now
Yeah.
like years later, I think back and I still remember that conversation and I'm like, that was the stupidest conversation I've ever had. But speaking of like drugs and substance use and stuff though, in at that time in your life, were you using alcohol or street drugs or anything? Like did that play any role into the progression of your mania, do you think? Or is that not
Uh,
applicable?
well, yeah, the only thing I was doing at the time was drinking here and there at parties. Um, but at that point in my life, I hadn't done any drugs at all. So that was something that, like, I think people at various times in my illness, um, if I'm in the hospital and a nurse is talking to me, they kind of like assume that I'm doing drugs and that a
Mm-hmm.
drug triggered my episode. And they kind of often found it hard to believe that I was not partaking in those things. And
Right.
yeah, just an interesting aside. But
Well, I can say, and I actually write about this a bit in my book, Happy Valleys. But for me, when I have been going through times in my life where I'm really manic, it really comes across to people like I've been using crystal meth or another like really strong stimulant drug. And I can see why people would think that because it's like rapid fire speech, like
mhm.
really jittery, like super high strung, like nervous, wired energy, you know? So it's like, I understand why the layperson would come across someone who's really manic in the way that I get manic and be like, oh, like this is someone who's like on crack or something.
Hmm.
But for healthcare professionals, specifically like psychiatric nurses and stuff, you would think that they would understand that a little bit better. That not all people who are having delusions have been like up for a week doing drugs and partying. You know what I mean?
Right. And I almost found it offensive back then because part of my identity was to be this kind of like squeaky clean person.
Hmm.
That's kind of how I was. I was actually pretty religious and I didn't do anything but drink, like I said, and was a very serious student, planning on going to med school. And so I just, it was kind of like jarring to suddenly be looked at differently and treated differently when I'd only been treated with a lot of respect so far in my life. And then suddenly people are acting like weirded out by me or like
And looking down on you and
looking down on
degrading
me.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's shocking when you're in those kinds of scenarios.
Yeah, definitely. Not to mention that, so not only did I not do recreational drugs, but I didn't even like to take like Tylenol. I was
Hmm.
just like, oh, I don't think I need any meds. Like, it's probably just healthier to be natural, and any medication that you take too much of is probably a little bit toxic. So I just avoided basically any meds. And then suddenly I was prescribed several different psychotropic medications that I was being told I'd have to take for the rest of my life. Terrible side effects and just feeling like this has to be doing something bad to my physiology,
Hmm.
given all the side effects. So that was just another disturbing aspect for me at the time.
So you were initially prescribed psychiatric medications when you were in the emergency room?
Yeah, so
And
I actually
how
have,
long were you in the hospital for after you were admitted to the ER?
so let's see, I believe I was in the hospital for about 3 weeks. Um, so yeah, this was November 2008. Um, and yeah, I must have been given a sedative in the ER. Like that's pretty much the the way that they do things, but
Hmm.
I don't really
Chemical
remember.
restraint.
Yeah, I don't really remember much about that at this point, but when I was admitted as an inpatient, um, I remember being given Zyprexa and almost feeling like a trippy feeling after they put me on that. Like it made things maybe not worse, but different in my mind.
Hmm.
I remember looking at the TV and the sounds and uh the pictures on the TV just seemed different somehow, like distorted. And I found that stuff really disturbing.
Hmm. Were there any major side effects you experienced aside from just the initial like adjustment where you felt kind of tripped out? Like, did you get nauseous or have insomnia or agitation or anything like that?
So I don't really remember if I had side effects from the Zyprexa. I feel like I must have, or I just felt too weird on it, kind of generally weird. That's why I might have gotten off of it. But um, what they put me on, I guess, after the Zyprexa, whether that was in the hospital or afterwards, I don't really remember. So I was put on lithium,
Hmm.
and I just, I really don't like lithium. I think it does a lot of good for a lot of people. I have a friend who's bipolar and is on lithium and says that it's the best drug for her,
Hmm.
that she feels the most stable on it. I felt so much brain fog on it. I could not like read. I could not recall words when I was forming my sentences. I was sleeping 12 hours a night. I might have been on too high a dose, but um, I remember feeling dehydrated a lot, and
Hmm.
also my hands had those tremors, you
Hmm.
know. So,
Yeah, I took lithium for a number of years and I had similar issues, not so much with brain fog, but definitely with dehydration, hand tremors, and also it was causing acne on my
oh, I
face.
had terrible acne too.
Yeah. I actually eventually it was weird because it coincided with when I was with my doctor's consultation and everything, tapering off of lithium and onto lamotrigine, which is what I take now, which was like maybe like a 6 to 8 month process. I started taking Accutane, and the combination of like Accutane with the reduced lithium, like I've never had skin problems really since then. And that was when I was in maybe
Is
my
Accutane like a dermatological med?
Yeah, it's for
Okay.
it's for acne, and it's actually a really hardcore medication. I had tried a lot of other stuff over the years. Accutane is considered, I believe, a medication of last resort for people who have like recurring painful acne, because it wasn't just like a cosmetic thing. It was like it was painful on my
Uh,
face. It was pretty bad. And I actually still have acne scarring on my cheeks. I don't know if you've ever noticed, but that is from when I was taking lithium. It's not like something that happened when I was a teenager going through
mhm.
puberty or whatever. So yeah, I'm also like lithium just like wasn't really for me. I also found like it was a little bit maybe sedating. My therapist,
Yeah.
who I've worked with for the last maybe 6 or 7 years now, it's been a long time that I've been working with her, but she's told me multiple times that after I got off of lithium, after a couple of years that she and I had been working together, is when I got off of lithium. She says she noticed like a pretty significant change in my demeanor and my personality and stuff after I got onto the lamotrigine. So, yeah, it's just different strokes for different folks.
Yeah, I feel like I felt pretty, for lack of a better term, like zombified on that one.
Hmm.
Like I couldn't feel my emotions very sharply, you know.
Yeah, yeah. And I hate how many doctors tell people it's the quote unquote gold standard. Like lithium is the gold standard medication for bipolar. It's like, what the fuck does that even mean, man?
Yeah, there's a really well-known book, bipolar memoir, um, but the name of it's escaping me, and it's written by a doctor who went through mania, and she has, I think, a whole chapter devoted to lithium and and singing its praises.
Hmm.
Um, Kay Jamison is her name.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't agree, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's great that it works for some people, but there are other treatment options, other medication options, or even interventions beyond medication or traditional psychiatric medication. But I remember I had an appointment with this psychiatrist who I used to see, and during one of our appointments, and this is back like before COVID, so this is back in the days where you would like physically go to an office to see your doctor for this sort of stuff. And we were just doing like a 20 to 30 minute medication management session. And I asked him, I can't remember the exact context, but I was like, I don't know if you've ever taken lithium before. And he was like, oh God, no, is what he said. He was like, God, no. And I was like, ah, okay. All right. Noted. So I don't know. But anyway, so that was your first really major manic psychotic episode.
That was like my first hint of any mood problems, basically. So
Yeah. Like you had been doing like pretty well up until then, like no real problems with like depression or anxiety or
I would say in high school, I had a fair bit of anxiety and maybe even mild depression, but I didn't see it as clinical level depression at all or anything like
yeah.
that.
Was it
Um,
was it like not really disrupting your life functioning?
exactly. I just
Okay.
remember looking back at high school journals in my 20s and being like, wow, this is really negative stuff. Like I was actually a little bit depressed, and I don't think I realized it at all at the time.
hmm
I just thought I was being a moody teenager, but
Yeah. Fast forwarding, so that was in 2008, and it is now nearing the end almost of 2025. So it's been over, well over 12 years. What does that come out to? Is it like what, 17? I don't do
17.
math.
I think it's
17,
17 years.
17 years, right? Yeah.
Mhm.
So 17 years later, like, where do you now stand on medication? Have you found a regimen that works for you? Like, are you happy with the side effect profiles? Like, do you feel stable? Like, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So I went through several different medications. Um, so I was on risperidone for a while. I was on Lamictal. But ultimately, I basically ended up going with Abilify, um, which oddly enough, the first time I was given Abilify, it was during my second episode in 2011. I was given Abilify, and I had a weird side effect where I got like muscle twitches all over my body from head to toe. And I know there must be a term for that.
I think it's called akathisia.
So they didn't believe me. I told them I was having this like terrible side effect, and they were like, just take an Ativan.
Yeah, take a benzo for that. Benzos are
Yeah.
good for you.
And it
Uh,
actually did make it go away, maybe because it like relaxed my muscles in some way or something.
uh-huh.
And so then they were like, see, you're just having anxiety because you hate medication. And so they gave it to me like 3 nights in a row. It happened like 3 times. They just gave me the Ativan again.
hmm
I was so mad. I felt so disrespected and just to be flat out disbelieved. Like
hmm
being told what was happening in my brain and body, like they knew better than I did.
Well, they're the
You're just
experts.
afraid of medication. You're just having a panic attack.
I did just
Um,
look it up as well, not to interrupt you, but akathisia is a movement disorder characterized by an intense, uncomfortable, and uncontrollable urge to move.
oh, that I did. I've experienced that too, but that was not this. This was actually like muscle twitches. Like I felt little
Oh,
twitches going on everywhere. Um, and I'm gonna look up what that is.
we're going to take a second to do some Google research for the mental
Uh,
health advocacy pod.
okay, yeah. It looks like it might be called muscle fasciculations. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Um, can be caused by stimulants, SSRIs, lithium,
Mhm.
antipsychotics. Anyway, um,
One more time, what is it called? Just as best as you can pronounce it.
muscle fasciculations. Fasciculatins.
Okay.
So the akathisia, is that what you called it?
Akathisia.
Akathisia. I had that a few years back when I went back to Abilify for the first time in years. Um, I actually had to, my cousin gave me a gift of a weighted vest that I think people use. I don't know if it's for uh, certain conditions where you feel like restless. It may have to do with autism or things like that.
Hmm.
Um, but so the weighted vest like helped me feel like I didn't need to crawl out of my skin. Um,
Wow.
and it did that for like a week and then it went away. Um, yeah, so Abilify, I don't know if I can, it didn't work immediately for me, but my body seemed to adjust to it.
Hmm.
And everybody's body is different too.
Hmm.
So it's hard to say, what works for some people with bipolar disorder doesn't work for others. And
Hmm.
people get different side effects and people get different benefits, different levels of benefit from it, from various meds. So,
But just
um,
to tie it back to the original question, like for you and your experience, like how are your meds currently working? Like, are you in a
yeah,
good
they're
spot?
working well. So I'm on Abilify now. That's the only medication that I'm on. I
Okay.
had I had this odd relationship with it where I thought was allergic to it for years
Hmm.
because of the side effect that I had when I was given it in the hospital. And then I I didn't love it for the first few weeks when I started on it again more
Hmm.
recently. But then, I did lower the dose and I did, I think, adjust to it in some way. And now I don't have any side effects. I think for a while I was feeling some fatigue on it, even after the more physical side effects were gone, the movement side
Hmm.
effects. Um,
Have there been times since 2008 when you were originally diagnosed and you went through the first hospitalization? Have there been times during the last 17 years where you did go off of your medications altogether?
yeah, so I went through, I call it remission when I go through a period of time without any mood symptoms. I went through a 7.5 year remission. And during that time, about 5 years of it, I didn't take any medication at all. And then, um, and then I had probably the worst episode of them all after that time period. Um, and I say worse because it lasted 2.5 months, I believe. So from December to the beginning of March, 2021 to 2022.
Hmm.
So that's more than 3 months. And so since then, since 3.5 years ago, I haven't gotten off medication
Hmm.
because I've been basically too afraid to go back into another episode. And I noticed that I've never entered a manic episode while on medication.
Hmm.
The only times that I've ever gone manic have been when I'm off medication. Yeah, I'm thinking back because I've had about 6 or 7 episodes. So I must have stopped the medication here and there,
Hmm.
if that's true. Because if memory serves, I hadn't been on any medication at the time that I ever went into an episode. So
Were those all manic episodes that you're talking about, the 6 or 7? Or did you
yeah,
have like
so
major depressive episodes that landed you in the hospital at some point?
I would say I've had one depressive episode that kind of overlaps with some of the psychosis. So I guess you could call it a mixed episode.
Hmm.
Um, so that was, yeah, that was hellish. That was a 1.5 year long depression.
Hmm.
Um, and that was in 2011 and 2012. So I would have been 23. Um,
23 years old.
yeah.
Okay. What made the most recent episode from 2021 through early 2022 the scariest, and like why did it freak you out worse than the others?
So definitely the length of time is the main thing. 2.5 month long episode, 2.5 month long departure from reality, where I very gradually got better.
Hmm.
And one day in March 2022, I kind of looked around and I was like, am I better? I think I am. And it's just like really disconcerting that, I was afraid maybe I would never return completely to my right mind, you know?
Hmm.
Um,
Were you hospitalized during that one, or did it just level
Oddly
out?
enough, it was the shortest hospital stay and the longest episode.
Oh, okay.
So I only went to the hospital for like 4 days that time. And then um just kind of I was living on my own. I had just separated from my ex-husband and was living on my own in an apartment, really living on my own for the first time ever while manic. It was really ill-advised. Like I don't, looking back, I can't believe that somebody didn't say, why don't you come? Like my parents didn't say, come home, or my ex-husband didn't say, why don't you stay here a little longer until you stabilize, even though we're breaking up?
Hmm.
Um, maybe I was just that hard to live with at the time, but
I mean, that's really dangerous.
absolutely. I was like inviting strangers to my apartment and stuff. It was
Yeah,
some, I had some like kind of close
like
calls.
high risk scenario.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Aside from the length of time, yeah, I guess being alone added that scary dimension. And then I had more paranoia in that episode than I had before. So I just really, really was feeling fearful a lot of every day. I was living in Baltimore and, you know, occasionally I would hear a gunshot, I would hear yelling, I would hear
Hmm.
like loud sounds outside. And I thought people were like yelling at me from outside or
Hmm.
watching me through my windows or um at the same time this in in that latest episode I got on social media a lot and I was posting all kinds of things that had I been living with somebody at the time, they would have taken my phone from me or not given me access to a computer. But I was, posting the most ridiculous things online, and then people, kind of predators out there, could tell that I was not mentally healthy and they were chatting with me and scamming me out of my money. So this was the first time that I ended up spending a ton of money during an episode.
Hmm.
Um, and just that extra dimension of having people online interact with you when you're confused about what's real and what's not,
Hmm.
and just tell you lies and make up stories, pretend they're celebrities that want to make you famous and things like
Yeah,
that.
preying on your vulnerability.
It's like extra confusing. I think it magnified my symptoms and kind of prolonged the episode.
I'm sure. So that was the worst one, maybe the most dangerous one. And now it's 2025. It's been a few years now. You're doing ostensibly a lot better. You're on some medication that seems to help you, and you're sticking to your medication. You have a long term partner and a kid and a step kid, and you're holding down a pretty legit job. I mean, working as a scientist. I know that it sounds well, maybe I should speak for myself, but I know there were times early on when I was in my early 20s and I had this really catastrophic acute manic episode. I thought after that happens and after I got out of the hospital and stuff, I was like, my life is over. Like, I'll never recover. I'll never be able to get a proper job. I'm never
Yeah.
going to have friends again. And it's interesting to see how we can go through moments like that that are so hardcore and heavy and messed up and
Come
yet
back.
still somehow come back. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I talk to a talk therapist every other week, and she frequently tells me how resilient I am and how well I'm doing, because I don't think that's the case for everybody with what
Yeah.
we have. Like, unfortunately, like people
Some people don't make
have
it.
have different levels of like functioning in a job or in day-to-day activities. I don't know. It's like I don't want to put anybody down because I kind of like understand, if anyone understands, I do, you know.
Yeah, it's not easy.
Yeah.
And even if it was easy, it still wouldn't be possible for everybody because everyone's situation is so different. And there's so many
Yeah.
different factors. Like what seems like a simple solution in some cases might be a much more difficult solution in
Well,
others.
let's just say I didn't grow up with a lot of money, and even into my 20s, when I went back to living at home after college, we had one car for four people. Um, Part of why I felt so depressed was completely situational. I don't even think it was just my brain chemistry going wrong.
Yeah.
I felt completely stuck. My medical career was derailed. I didn't even mention that I ended up going to med school for part of a semester and dropping out. And I thought my life was over. I thought, well, my career is in the trash. Like, I don't know if I can go to medical school. I thought about going back. I was on medical leave of absence, and they held a spot for me in the next year's class, incoming class, for first years. And at the time, I was on lithium again, and I could not envision myself studying medical technology, medical textbooks and concepts. I couldn't even like read one page in any book that you put in front of me. I couldn't concentrate on it. So, um, I turned down the seat that they held for me in the next year's class. And as soon as I like hung up the phone, I felt like kind of like felt like a pit opened in the floor and like sucked me in. I was just like, I can't believe I just turned down
Yeah.
a seat in med school because I just knew I wasn't going to be successful on the medication that I was on. So I didn't, and I had devoted my whole life to getting into med school, basically since middle school, like choosing all my courses in high school and studying for the SAT early, and just so I could like get admitted to a good college so I could, create the best med school application. Like everything was planned for many, many years to get me to that point.
Yeah.
Um, and then I had a manic episode 10 weeks in to the first semester.
Mhm.
I remember being in anatomy lab and thinking the cadaver was going to come to life because it was the end times and like the dead were about to rise. And
Cool.
yeah, literally was having like audio hallucinations of angel choirs and things. Like I thought the honking horns in the from the cars outside were, horns
Like
that the
the
angels were blowing.
trumpets.
Exactly, like
Yeah.
bringing in the end. Um, a lot of religious delusions that kind of led me to kind of back away from religion in my life.
Hmm.
Um, because I don't know. I guess like I just kind of have a distaste personally for things that are supernatural now. I just want to ground myself in reality. So,
Makes sense. That
yeah.
tracks. So you're at a place now of like relative stability and doing pretty well in life in a lot of different capacities. And to transition a little bit more into the other stuff that we wanted to talk about beyond just your journey and some of the things that you experienced, you just to provide context for the audience, you had originally reached out to me on Twitter in roughly February of this year, 2025. And I guess you had like maybe read one of my books or something, and you had reached out to me with, I think, a question about how to get started with writing or to continue writing a book that you were and are envisioning. Is that an accurate summary?
Yeah, I had read part of My Brain is Trying to Kill Me. Um, and I thought it was really cool that you had done something that I would love to do, that I aspire to do. And that's right. Well, you've written two memoirs related to your mental illness. And I can't say that I've made a ton of progress on my own writing, but it's something that I I just would like to do and that well honestly I've struggled a lot with just knowing what it is that I'm trying to say
Hmm.
in my book. Part of what it started as was the need to vent
Yeah.
and then it was like asking myself how useful is this to people to show them
Hmm.
how much that I've suffered, who wants to read that? So it just kind of keeps my goals with the book keep shifting and
Hmm.
it's still very early stages.
Right. So, what, not to talk about myself too much, but you were talking about like how, and I can't even remember like the exact original questions you were asking me about or like how this whole correspondence began. And of course now like we've met in person a couple of times and like we stay in touch and everything, which is awesome. But I know that when you and I talk about your writing, you often describe like what you were just saying, like the whole like it's difficult to kind of narrow down specifically like what I'm trying to do and like the specific events or topics that I want to write about. And so just to let you know, the thing that inspired me to start writing about my experiences and the reason I wrote and published my first book, My Brain is Trying to Kill Me, which came out in like mid 2020. The driving force behind that, and I don't always actively remember this, but it was just because I wanted to have a way to explain to my friends like what had happened and why I had fucked up our friendships. And like, I basically, it was almost like, in a certain sense, it was like I wanted to do kind of like a tell all, almost like confessional, if you will. Maybe that sounds a little bit too dramatic, but like I just really wanted to have some sort of explanation that was articulated and to enough of an extent where other people would be able to read it and be like, oh, hey, like this is what happened. Like this is, why he did these things or was behaving this way. And like these are the repercussions that resulted from that, if that makes sense. So I found that that approach helped me define like who my core audience was, and I was able to write, I wrote it as if I was like writing to a friend who I wanted to like tell about what had happened, if that makes any sense. That's kind of long-winded.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. And I looked when you said that, I did a search through my email because I was reminded of a chapter or two that I wrote back in 2011. I had an episode in 2011 as well. So this must have been like really fresh at the time for me. Um, wow, I almost forgot about this. I'll have to like maybe it's making me laugh now. Do you know what I titled the book?
What?
Two Trips Too Many, The Psychedelic Mind of the Sober Girl.
Oh my God.
So
Two
so
trips
silly.
too many. Well, I've been saying the
It was my
working
second
title.
episode.
Yeah, yeah. And the working title for your current book totally should be Once in a Generation.
Also kind of silly, yes.
I think it's more clever than my brain is trying to kill me, to be honest with you.
I do have a title in mind now, but you didn't seem that thrilled about it when I told you about it. You said interesting.
What was the title again?
Um, Decadent Dreams.
Oh yeah. Interesting.
I
Decadent
don't know,
Dreams.
because it to me it would speak to delusions of grandeur, but also maybe my ambition in my career and academics that may have helped trigger the episodes to begin with.
That makes sense. So
Um,
let me ask you this. What is motivating you to write? Like, have you given any more thought to like your audience or like how you're approaching what you explore in Decadent Dreams? Is that what you called it?
mhm.
Yeah, Decadent Dreams. So, like, what's up with that? Like, tell us about what your mission behind Decadent Dreams is.
Well, a few months ago, so I had started thinking about writing this when I was on maternity leave. Um, so I guess really at the beginning of 2025. I have an 11-month-old. Um, and so even though it wasn't like I had a ton of free time on my hands or anything, I wasn't at work and I theoretically had some time to write while the baby was sleeping and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it really just started as simple as wanting to write a story, telling how I've been through some harrowing things, but I'm doing okay, and kind of wanting to inspire people who are going through something similar to show, like, look how far I've come. Um, I also asked myself at one point if I wanted to make it kind of like a self-help memoir and give advice on, maybe exercise, diet, meditation, things that have helped me. Um, but at the end of the day, I just feel like I'm more motivated to write my story. And I think that that's how it's going to be shaping up, is just more as a memoir. Um, I don't, so yeah, when I talk to you about, um, your most recent memoir and how it's focusing on a period of, what is it, like a 2-year period?
Yeah. So, Happy Valleys focuses on um, my last 2.5 years of college and like about yeah, basically 3 years is the time span because it starts in 2012 and then I wrap it up around like late 2015, early 2016.
Yeah. So when I realized that I don't, that it might make more sense to just narrow it down, I decided that I want to write about my most recent episode And it also fell at kind of an interesting time in my life where my marriage was falling apart and I was starting to like figure out what my next steps were. Um, I quit my job at the
Hmm.
time, and so um I kind of wanted to pick up my story or tell my story from the time where I thought I had my shit together. It had been 7.5 years
Hmm.
since I had a manic episode, and I didn't even think I needed medication anymore. And then the rug was pulled out from under me, and I had the worst episode ever. So that's kind of the story that I want to tell with it. Um, I feel like there are a lot of things that I could say that fall outside of that scope, and maybe those would be more like Substack articles or another book.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, so narrowing that down in my mind was a big step because I just wanted to tell the whole story of like the whole 17 years at first and
Yeah.
realize how pretty impossible that would have been.
I feel like for us bipolars who make it to our 30s, it's like by the time you're in your 30s, like there's plenty of material for multiple books.
Yeah, right. Um,
I do think it's helpful though to like narrow down the focus rather than so like my first book, My Brain is Trying to Kill Me, focused on a much wider period of time. And so, like, I was trying to talk about the college experience and then the manic episode and the road trip. And then I was talking about the hospitalization. And then I was talking about this really bad, kind of like mixed manic or depressive psychotic episode thing in like 2017 or 2018 that had happened. And it was like, those things are compelling, sure. But also, I wasn't really able to flesh everything out and explore it in a way that was as nuanced as it could have been. And so that's why the second time around, the second full length memoir I did, I was like, I'm going to focus on a more specific time frame for the purposes of coherency and pacing. And there was actually a lot of stuff that I still ended up cutting out of Happy Valleys. Because if I had kept the original draft and like included everything that was in the original draft, the book would have been over like 300 pages long. And I was like, that just is like excessive for various reasons. Like it's just, I don't know. It just seemed like overly ambitious or something.
yeah, like when I think about memoirs and kind of like the scope of what you're trying to say, like the amount of your story that you're telling, I kind of think like unless you're Michelle Obama, like people probably don't want to know like about the neighborhood you grew up in
I
and who your
know.
friends were as a kid,
Yeah.
you know?
Yes.
So
Absolutely. I
yeah.
think that might be a pitfall that a lot of people fall into where they're like, because like everyone thinks that they're, no, I mean, I don't want to sound like a jerk or something, but like, it's like, yes, your life is special and what you've experienced is important to you, but not like, again, like you were saying, unless you're like a super famous person, like people don't
Want to know
necessarily need to know like every
all about your
single,
life in
like
many different
every
arenas of your life.
formative,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um,
Like
so I actually just read an interesting memoir. I just finished it yesterday.
it was called Happy
Uh,
Valleys.
I know I finished it before I finished yours. Isn't that terrible?
It's
And
crazy.
it's because I
I'm
listen to
offended.
audiobook. I listen to audiobooks a lot
Oh,
more than I
yeah.
read. So
Hey,
this is an audiobook.
wait, no, but speaking of audiobooks, everyone should go to bipolarrecorder.com and buy some merch so I can record an audiobook edition of Happy
So
Valleys.
so I can finish it.
Yes, and Jennifer can finish it.
Uh,
Anyway, I'm sorry. So what was this memoir that you just finished that wasn't
so
Happy Values?
it's called The Tell, and it's written by a woman who grew up in the 1980s, I believe. Like she went to high school in the 80s, and um, she was abused by a teacher, and she didn't remember anything about it until she was an adult. It was just this really crazy
Like
revelation
repressed.
to her. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so it was just so well written. And what I wanted to say about this memoir is that she did an amazing job of writing kind of an epic story spanning from, I'm sorry, it was middle school when she was abused. So from her middle school years to adulthood, um, and I believe she was in her 40s or 50s by the time she wrote the book. So, but that's present time. And um, she she's not famous. And so I kind of want to take back a little bit of what I just said, that, you can absolutely write a book spanning a lot of number of years and make it coherent, but she wrote on like a very narrow topic.
That's the thing, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, sure, you can write about, like, 30 years of your life, but it needs to still be, like, focused around some sort
Yeah.
of, like, theme or whatever. I don't know. I mean, I'm not an expert, but, like, that's just kind of what I've observed over the last few years, especially when it comes to, like, my own writing and my own approaches and shit. Um, so when do you think Decadent Dreams will be completed? And when will your audiobook be coming out?
Wow. So yeah, I do not have a regular writing practice. I kind of write when I can get the time. I feel like I need to devote chunks of time to it on a regular basis for that to happen in the near future. So when I started outlining in January, I told myself I would write it this year. I feel like it could be done in a year if I actually focused on it like on a weekly basis.
Like before January 1st, 2026.
No, like
An
if I like
additional,
start that goal
is
again
it
in
restart the goal
2026.
day one?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it does take self-discipline to get stuff like that accomplished for sure.
You have to write when you don't feel like writing and
I know,
things
which
like
is like
that.
so hard.
Yeah.
But also, like, I mean, if you're just working on an initial draft, like sometimes what it can be worthwhile to do is just like word vomit onto the page and then just go
Yeah.
back like weeks later and, you know, like, fix it.
Yeah. Yeah, I had told you that I wrote most of a chapter the other week. Um, and then I just had all this self-doubt about it. Like, was I even saying anything useful with this chapter?
I think you said you were going to send one of those chapters to me, weren't you? Didn't you say that?
Yeah, so I was gonna like finish that chapter and then send it to you. Maybe I'll just send the 80% complete chapter to you.
Okay.
And then you
I'll
can
look at it.
tell me if it looks like complete garbage.
Okay. I'm sure it's not complete garbage. I can tell you that much now.
Thanks. Um, yeah, so I did write on Substack for maybe a couple of months regularly. That's something I would like to pick up again. Um, Having an infant at home is not easy.
Mm.
Um, and I actually, the last thing I wrote on Substack before I stopped writing was something along the lines of um, how I've been kind of, in order to meet my weekly goal of publishing a post, an article or a poem. It was, I wasn't following a strict format every week, but I was publishing something that felt meaningful and was saying something that I wanted to say every week.
Hmm.
And I felt like it was a little bit ironic that I was staying up till like midnight once a week to get this posted when preserving my sleep is so important for my mental health.
Yeah, the irony.
Yeah.
Well, where can people find your Substack? Do you still work on it at all? Like, or can people subscribe and like check it out if they want to?
Yeah, I would say check it out. I'm at J Suzanne 88.
Okay, so you're on Substack at J Suzanne 88. Is that what you
That's
said?
right. Yep.
Okay, so JSUZANNE 88, right?
Yes. So I've got a publication on there called Mining My Mind. And basically, the idea is to find, however cheesy this sounds, gems of wisdom in all of the pain and trauma. And kind of, although a lot of these posts are venting, these articles, like they will be dealing with things that suck and are not fun. I try to put some kind of twist in there of hope or something positive.
Okay,
So,
great
yeah,
pitch
thank you. It's called Mining My Mind. That's the publication,
on
and I'm
Substack.
Jennifer Suzanne on Substack.
All right, awesome. So we've been going for a little while now. Is there anything else you wanted to add before we kind of wrap up the show? Like anything that we haven't touched on or anything else you want to plug as far as your creative stuff goes, or, like your Twitter X handle or whatever? I don't know.
Not very active on Twitter these days
I've
either.
noticed. It's probably a good thing, honestly. Because like Twitter, it just gets progressively more and more insane by the day. It's like not good for mental health to be on it as much as I am.
Can I read a short piece from my Substack? It's like
Yeah,
30 seconds long.
yeah, go for it.
Okay. This is called All the Missing Pieces. All the missing pieces of the songs I half wrote dissolved into the hours spent clicking through Excel sheets, the minutes spent scrolling through social media, the seconds spent wondering if anyone will listen to them. The missing pieces of my social life have been spread across the globe when best friends who are more like sisters moved to different places, grew up, started careers and families. The missing pieces of my faith were left in the hopeless times, the senseless struggles, and the questions that nobody could answer. The missing pieces of my confidence are in the failures, the foibles, the perceived humiliations that no one else noticed.
Nice. Yeah, that's a little dark,
Yeah, I would say
but engaging.
a lot of the writing is a little dark, but that's what has to come out.
Yeah, sometimes you just need to take that rage out on the page.
Yeah.
Yeah. Creativity is a great therapeutic outlet, no doubt. All right. Well, this has been Bipolar Recorder, the official podcast with Jennifer Suzanne, who is on Substack at jsuzanne88 and is hopefully going to be coming out with a book in the near future, possibly 1 year from now, but we'll see. And we'll hold you to that. So I hope next September you need to come back on and be pitching your new book, Decadent Dreams. That would be awesome. That would be a nice little full circle moment for everyone.
That's the dream, right?
All right, Jennifer. Well, thank you for coming on the show. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you for having me on. This was great.
Thank you for listening to this interview with Jennifer Suzanne. Jennifer's publication, called Mining My Mind, is available on Substack, and her profile on Substack is jsuzanne88. So that's JSUZANNE88 on Substack. My name is Hunter Keegan. Remember that you can find my bipolar books on Amazon. My 2 full-length memoirs, My Brain is Trying to Kill Me, and Happy Valleys, A Bipolar Journey, as well as my short story, Alice Head Creeps, are all available there. All of my books are available in Kindle and paperback formats. And for Happy Valleys, A Bipolar Journey, there's even a hardcover edition available. Fancy. Like Jennifer and I touched on during the interview, one of my key goals for Bipolar Recorder and my wider mental health outreach mission right now is to record an audiobook edition of Happy Valleys. After the tragic demise of my Kickstarter campaign earlier this summer, I've been raising funds directly through my own website, which is bipolarrecorder.com. So you can check out bipolarrecorder.com to make a one-time donation or maybe buy cool limited edition merch to support this project. There's also always the Patreon page for people who wish to make recurring donations and receive super exclusive stuff. You may also recall that I mentioned coordinating some more presentations at Penn State University during a couple of the earlier installments of this show over the summer. I'm very excited to say that PSU's Department of Psychology and I have confirmed that I'll be coming up there again during the spring semester of 2026. I'll share more details in the future as the official dates draw nearer. Thank you to everyone who listens to this show, and a huge special thanks to everyone who is generous and cool enough to financially support. Remember that there's currently no formal marketing for this show, so it's important to tell your friends about Bipolar Recorder or to post about it on social media. Word of mouth helps spread our message. So again, support at bipolarrecorder.com. You can also follow Bipolar Recorder on the platform now known as X, previously known as Twitter, at Bipolar Recorder. My personal account is also on Twitter or X, at HHKeegan, if you would like to follow my personal account. And we're additionally on Instagram, also at Bipolar Recorder. This has been Hunter Keegan with the 63rd official installment of the Bipolar Recorder podcast. Have a glorious day, evening, or night, wherever you are. Bipolar Recorder is a listener-supported show. To help keep the show running, consider checking out our Patreon page or visiting bipolarrecorder.com.
Unless otherwise stated, the hosts and guests on Bipolar Recorder are not licensed mental health professionals. Bipolar Recorder is not a substitute for therapy or professional medical intervention. If you are having a mental health crisis, please contact your local emergency services.